You know, the man is a boss now, so you'll be the last person uh, to talk. So I will begin with another co-host, one Kess, Kess. So we begin with Kess. Yeah, Honorable Kess, can you just open your mic and just call your name, your city, if possible, your university, and then just tell what you hope to learn from today's program.
Hello, hello, hello.
I think Honorable Cass is one of the speakers.
Oh, he's one of the speakers.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Jesus
think so.
Christ. Sorry, Chief. Check out my big Then we begin with Aaron S. Pittman.
Okay, good evening.
Is he also one of the speakers?
You guys hear me?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, Honorable Aaron, wherever you are, you can kindly
You guys hear me?
open your mic and tell us what you hope to learn from today's program.
I think that's Dr. Aaron Pittman. I'm not sure, but I've seen two Aaron S. Pittman,
Hello, are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Aaron S. Pittman. I'm joining from Guangzhou. I'm from the University of Science and Technology of China, USTC. Thank you for having me tonight, and I hope to add more to my research training skill. So I'm here to learn more. Thank you.
We cannot stop learning. Imagine it dies all online to learn about research. Thank you, Chief, for joining us. Next we have Aisha. Yeah, Aisha. Just open your mouth and just tell us where you're joining us from and what you hope to learn from today's program.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sodi Biakwe, Nanton City President. I hope to gain a practical knowledge on research skill and effective collaboration from this program today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Lema.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Well, my name is Lema H.C. Dowi from Suzhou's University of Science and Technology. Well, I hope to gain a lot. What's the idea that will help me explore in my research area? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, quickly we'll move to Alfreda Ruth Tokba. Yeah, Honorable Alfreda, when you're there, you can open your mic.
Am I being heard?
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Alfreda from Suzhou City, and I'm glad to be part of this meeting tonight. I look forward to achieving other things, hands-on skills to be able to come up with sophisticated research, because we know as scholars, research is one of the key areas of our studies of being in China. So look forward to achieving a lot tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfreda. Yeah, next we go to Jeffrey. Jeffrey. I wonder that Jeffrey that I know. Yeah, Jeffrey, when you're there, you can open your mic and you can kind of unmute yourself and just call your name and tell us the city you're joining us from him. I think Jeffrey is not there. Kanti. Who is Kanti?
Thank you. How am I loud? You get me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening to everyone again. My name is Simeon. When we are comfortable, prefer to be called country. And so I'm joining you from Studio City. I'm a student at the Studio University of Science and Technology. It is my expectation to learn the basic skills in terms of research and the techniques as well. At the end of the day, to be a master in research. Thank you.
Next is Matilda Mokonje City.
Good evening, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name is Matilda Mogoje City. I'm so happy to be here, and I hope to learn a new skill that will add to my knowledge. Thank you. I'm from Naiton.
The way you're talking straight is sounding the flower from Nato.
Why?
Nato, what in the voice now? Next, we have Honorable Morris Wiggy G.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I am Honorable Wiggy Morris from Suzhou University of Science and Technology. I'm an evolving person. That means I'm always open to new ideas, and which is why I'm here. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Wiggy Morris. Next is Robert T. Griffiths. Robert T. Griffiths.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert T. Griffiths from Suzhou University of Science and Technology. I'm here to drink from the fountain of knowledge, especially in the area of research. And I hope at the end of this program, I will have a power bank knowledge that I can refer to in my research endeavor. Thank you.
You know, out of the small you have here. After Wiggy Morris, next is Rwanda / Gracious Uragige. Jesus Christ. Sorry, Chief, if I mispronounce your name, but that's Gracious. Is the person online? Okay. I'm seeing the in the chat. So you can just unmute yourself and talk if possible. Okay.
I think it's Gladius.
He said Gracious said his mic is not good. So next is Techno BG6. Techno BG6.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we're getting you.
Okay. My name is Rika B. Riches, and I'm joining you from Suzhou. Firstly, let me use this time to thank the organizers of this program for creating this opportunity for us. And I hope to acquire knowledge that will help me in my research work and make my journey here at Suzhou University of Science and Technology smooth, especially in the research areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then next we have Titus.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I hope you all can see me. I'm the Titus Kekla, Secretary of the PPC and Vice President of Naton Student Union. And I hope and pray to learn some good things like what I've been learning from the previous one. And I pray that I can add to my knowledge. I'll stop it for now.
Thank you. So after that was the chairman of this all-important program, Honorable Small Frederick Gavelaw. Boss.
Okay, thank you. My name is Small Frederick Gavelaw. Precisely city president of the Suzhou city. Deputy Jiangsu province coordinator. Chairperson of the program planning committee. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening. At this present time, I'm happy to be here. And what I hope to achieve today is to develop skills, necessary skills, that's going to aid me and give me all it takes to write a research paper in 1 week. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Abdul Frederick Gavelaw is the 001 Jiangsu province. Honorable Alexander Domajo, coordinator of Jiangsu province.
Okay, good evening to all scholars and fellow leaders here. And my name is Alexander Domajo. I'm the coordinator of Jiangsu province. So it's an opportunity to be here and hope to gain insight in the principle and practices, practical principles and practices in conduct of research, because these skills are important for the academic work and for future professional endeavors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we can allow the Honorable President, His Excellency Orlando Tiablo, yes, to at least maybe introduce himself and just tell what he hoped to learn. What should we say, hope to learn or what? You know, sometimes when giving people a chance to talk, you can talk.
Yeah, well, good evening, Jiangsu. Thank you so much to the leadership of Jiangsu province for organizing this event. You have a very good coordinator, and hearing from all of you here tonight about your positions and your involvement to the workings of Jiangsu, that's something that I've already learned in my research about LSUIC. And tonight, I'm also open to learn more and to understand that LSUIC has a lot of great minds and passionate members that are eager to grow and develop themselves. In the coming days, there will be more programs geared towards these things. And it's good that Jiangsu have kicked up the process. On the 31st, there will be another one from Guangdong province, where the speaker, Honorable Pittman, who is here with us tonight, will be speaking. And thereafter, the first week in February, we'll be having another session again. So just get yourself up. This vacation is all about learning and capacity building. And let us learn something so that tomorrow we'll go home. At least we'll be able to do something. If they say you come to China, you come to study, what can you do? You will say, oh, I know how to click the mouse. I know how to do this one. I know how to find research paper. Thank you, Jiangsu. We are here.
Thank you to all of the attendees there for their tips on the program. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
With no time to waste, we quickly move to welcome statement, and this will be done by the Honorable Chairperson of the PPC of the PEC, Honorable Small Frederick Gavelaw. You can unmute yourself and talk.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Moderator of this all-important program. And once again, my name is Smo Frederick Gavler, President of Suzhou City. Our Honorable National President, Honorable Orlando Tiablo, our Honorable Past President, and present speaker of our today's program, Honorable Gideon L.V. Suri, our Honorable Jiangsu Province Coordinator, Honorable Alexander Dombajo, here present, other national leaders here present, fellow PEC members, our distinguished speakers, all distinguished city presidents of Jiangsu Province, our dynamic student bodies, ladies and gentlemen, at this all-important time, I would like to say welcome to this all-important program. Thank you for coming to join us. Thank you for hacking onto our crowd to make our program a success. We pray that as you have come, you will not go back the same. And as you have come, feel free. Let's enjoy the acquisition of knowledge from our own Liberian brothers, from our own scholars who have come to impart knowledge into us. We want you to feel free, ask questions. Let's respect one another's view, and let's enjoy this program and acquire the necessary skill that is required of us as fellow scholars so that we can make Mama Liberia proud and that we'll have all it takes as researchers and put Liberia on the map. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, enjoy yourself and let's feel free and have a very good program. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Program Committee Chair. Next, we have a recognition of guests, and this will be done by the PPC of the PEC, the Secretary of the PPC, Honorable Tatos D. Kakula.
Hey, good evening, everyone, again. I hope I'm audible and I hope you all can see me.
What?
Can you all see me or hear me?
No. We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
I'm using another device, so I would like to take this time to recognize some personality or everyone, but I will firstly like to honor our Excellencies President Orlando Tiablo. We said thank you for the opportunity, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for you serving all, because your work, we are looking at your work and we are working according to what you are doing for us. So I say you are most highly recognized, and we say welcome again. We do appreciate everything you are doing. So I would also like to recognize our Secretary of the Jiangsu Province, which is Honorable Bonye, which is the President's NC for our program. And I would also like to recognize our powerful coordinator for Jiangsu Province, which is Alexander Doma, who says thank you for your leadership role. Thank you for empowering us. And I also like to recognize our honorable speaker. And I'll also say sorry for maybe my boss mentioned Gideon, boss. I think that was a mistake or error. So I would like to recognize our speaker for the day, which is Honorable Kesedi Moluba. And we say you are welcome, and we say thank you for honoring our invitation, and thank you for the knowledge that you are about to pass to us. And also, I also like to recognize my powerful and energetic leaders, boss. I call him Frederick Gabriel. I call him the president. We say thank you, and you are well recognized. I also have Mandela Mokonche City from Naton. We said you are recognized. And we have Yuana Gracious, Eureka. Sorry for the pronunciation. You are welcome and you are recognized. We have Aaron X Pigment. You are recognized. And my boss, honorable, excellent. I don't know which one to call. Acha, I'm saying I salute you. You are recognized, and we had Efida Ruth Tomba. My people, this girl, I don't want to talk. You are recognized, and she is the chairman of our conference committee, cookie committee. We say you are recognized, and we have all the leaders. I mean, I know your reference cities. We had D. Marings, you are recognized. We had Jerry, you are recognized. Kanti, you are recognized. Lima, you are recognized. Morris, you are recognized. Morris Richie G, you are recognized. Rabos T. Griffith, you are recognized. I don't know who is this song, but you are also recognized. Techno 6, you are recognized. Techno 16, you are recognized. And I said thank you all for joining us and thank you for honoring our invitations. And I'll stop here.
Oh, a lot of recognition. Anyway, thanks for the recognition. Yeah, I think for those of you using some other names that does not align with legal names, you can try to change it. Or better still, if you aren't able, you can just type your name in the comment section and one of the co-hosts will help you change it online. Thank you. Yeah, next on our agenda, we have introduction of the program. And this will be done by the 001 of Jiangsu province, Honorable Alexander Domba Joe, province coordinator. Honorable Joe, you can.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Protocol Officer. Our National President, Honorable Orlando Tiablo, our distinguished facilitators, and other guests, Honorable Dr. Big Four, members and leaders from Jiangsu, members of the Provincial Executive Committee with us here, fellow scholars, good evening. It's an opportunity for all of us to converge here this evening as part of our academic endeavors to develop our capacity, build our capacity. That's why we are here. So on behalf of the librarian student in Jiangsu province, it is my pleasure to warmly welcome you all to this online academic training program on the formalities of research writing. Again, my name is Alexander Domajo, and I serve as the coordinator of Jiangsu province. Fellow scholars and leaders, this training has been carefully organized in recognition of the growing importance of research writing skills in our today's academic work and professional environments. None of us here can dismiss the fact that we have academic obligations, be it our thesis, be it our research publications, or whatever it might be, we have those obligations. And in order for us to easily fulfill those obligations, we have to be equipped with the skills to do that. Whether we are undergraduate, postgraduate, or early career researchers, our ability to communicate clearly or logically through research writing is very important for our academic and global competitiveness. So in our endeavors, many of us, through the wisdom of the National Executive Committee, they have organized series of academic programs that most of us have participated in or have been a beneficiary of it. And there are many more academic programs because our core values is academic excellence through hard work. So we must do everything we can do to prepare ourselves so that tomorrow, just like the president said initially, so that we can prepare ourselves better to be able to contribute to our country development. So that tomorrow when we go back home or somebody asks you, like the president, the words of the president, what can you do? Or what skills or what do you bring to the table? We have some knowledge, we have some skills to bring to the table. So it is from that background that we organize this program as part of our contribution or an effort to buttress the national leadership efforts in equipping scholars to be able to navigate the challenges of their research project. So we are honored to have our knowledgeable facilitators who will guide us through the key aspect of research writing tonight. Maybe from structuring scholarly work and to improving clarity, coherence, and maybe publication-ready projects. I encourage all participants, all of us scholars online today, to engage actively with the facilitators, ask the most difficult questions or most confusing questions about research that you have not heard or maybe you don't understand, and make the most of this learning opportunity. Once again, thank you for making time to be part of this program, and I wish all of us a productive, insightful, and rewarding training section. Thank you, and I hope that we all can make the best out of these moments, or we can make this moment count. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Coordinator. Without much ado, I want to take a little musical interlude, but we've been struggling with the music business for some time now. So, yes, sir.
Can you please can you please start sharing your screen? Let me share something real quick.
Share with me, or you want to share on the platform?
No, share with you.
Then share with me via WeChat. Now, let me see it first.
Okay, yeah.
So while you are sharing, let's be gearing up a little bit. So the next person there is Rika B. Richards. So be gearing up as the secretary of the program planning committee shared the autobiography of our guest speaker.
China Kucha.
Yeah.
Let's carry on. What are we waiting for?
Okay.
Yeah, kindly bear with us from the level of the where is Rika B. Richards? If you are able to share the autobiography of the guest speaker, you can do that, or better still, you send it to me so I can quickly share it for the audience sake. Titus, you can share with me so I can share it.
Are you? Oh, okay.
Just with a mini.
No, this one is due to do the introduction of the guest speaker, so she can do that.
Are you able to share a screen?
Yes.
No.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, she
Then.
can.
No problem. So next is the introduction of the guest speaker by Rika B. Richards.
Okay, thank you very much. Our distinguished leaders, honorables, fellow scholars, ladies and gentlemen, let me use this time again to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. Not to waste much of our time, our guest speaker is currently doing his PhD in finance at Shanghai University. He holds a Master of Science in Finance and a Bachelor of Economics in International Economics and Trade. He served as a coordinator of the Shanghai Union of Liberian Students and has more than 3 years of finance and market research internship experience at an investment management firm in Shanghai. Our guest speaker has published a couple of scientific research works. Fellow scholars, please join me as we welcome our guest speaker, Honorable Dr. Keseli Traore Mova, our guest speaker.
Thank you. But let me just disabuse and that title that was ascribed to me, doctor. I'm not yet a doctor. I'm not even a PhD
Okay.
candidate yet. Yeah, I'm still a student because there's a very clear distinction between
Doctor
PhD
in
student
waiting.
and PhD candidate. Yeah, so I'm still a student here.
Doctor in training.
Yeah, I'm still in
Doctor
the
in
process of
training, yeah.
completing.
We can just send maybe welcome emoji in the group or welcome our guest speaker or welcome statement. Maybe in the group you can say just welcome chat in the chat section. Or maybe emoji.
Yeah, honorable guest speaker, I have stopped sharing my screen, so you can share your PPT. Yeah, good, nice.
Okay. Can you guys you should see my screen, right? Let me try to do full screen. Sure.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
A couple seconds, please. Okay. You guys can see my screen, right? So
Yes, we can see, sir.
firstly, let me say thank you to the PPC, the Program Planning Committee of the Jiangsu province for the invitation. But I might say the aspect of research is completely deep and broad. So that's something that can be covered in just 2 hours. Even 5 hours is not enough, or one day is not enough for you to understand all those little intricacies of the research writing process. And I heard somebody said that they hope to be able to know everything about research at least after this training. That's not possible. So first you need to disabuse yourself of that misconception first. Yeah, because these are skills you develop over time by engaging with the process, by doing research yourself. So I can lay out everything here to you. It doesn't mean you are capable of doing research because there are certain things that comes with you doing the work. There are certain things you discover, there are certain things you learn when you are doing it yourself. So without much further ado, I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here. And I've tried my best to condense as much information as possible into my presentation. So my presentation might come out a little bit, maybe kind of unstructured because um, the entire research process is kind of like too vast and varied. So I try to find the best way I can connect all those little things, into one central idea. So without much further ado, let's dive right in. My name is Kesali. As previously introduced, I'm currently doing my PhD in finance at Shanghai University. So I'm the president emeritus of the coordinator emeritus of the Shanghai Union of Liberian Students. Got a couple of publications, even though not in top journals, but I do think I understand a little bit of the research writing process. So by the end of my presentation, this is what I hope we can achieve. We can understand. One second, I'm not seeing myself. Let me see something. Yeah. I hope we
can see
can
you.
understand how academic research is designed. We can know how to identify strong and weak research questions. We can know how to structure a research paper correctly in the right manner, because there are standards where you can structure a paper, especially if you are considering publications. And we can also know how to write in a very clear, academic, and ethical fashion, and also avoid common mistakes that might lead to a rejection of our papers. Say we submit our paper to a journal for publication. So we need to be cautious of those mistakes that might lead to possible rejections. So the structure of my presentation is twofold. First, I will talk about research methodology because, and the reason my presentation is twofold. When I was invited, I was told there was going to be another speaker. I don't know, based on the content. So I thought I was going to do another section, and then the other speaker was going to do another section. But after some time, I had to do both of them. So I had to uh, find a way to incorporate the other section of the presentation into my presentation. So first, I'll talk about research methodology. I'll give the definition, and I'll explain why research methodology matters. And I'll talk about the process, step-by-step process, the research design, data, and common methodological mistakes. But most of the thing I will talk about will be from the perspective of finance, because I'm into finance and economics. So maybe you will notice that most of my things is mostly finance related, but it doesn't mean some of the things I'm talking about is not applicable to maybe your own field of studies. And then secondly, I'll talk about just basic academic writing skills, how to structure a paper based on the standard format, how to write a very compelling introduction, writing abstract, and some common writing errors to avoid. And then we also talk about citations and academic integrity. A second, please. So before we proceed, I got a question for you guys. The first one is, what do you find the hardest? Coming up with a topic, with a methodology, or the entire writing process, like sitting down and trying to find the best way to articulate your thoughts, or coming up with the topic, the method, or finding data. What do you think is the hardest thing to do in terms of the research writing process? If you want to share your view, you can just unmute your mic. Let's try to make this a bit interactive. You can just share with me what do you think based on your experience engaging with research. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, good evening.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good
think
evening.
for my little experience, one of the difficult things I experienced before was getting a topic, because like for me in the engineering field, if you are giving a topic, maybe a broad field, now they are tell you to get your focal point. So as my first time, I felt a little bit embarrassed because I tried to think, where am I going to focus? Yes, I had to read two different proposals and send to my lecturer. She said, no, this is not a focus point. Your topics don't have focus point. So I was a little bit embarrassed. So that was one of the challenges that I really experienced. My topics and that are the focal points of my research.
Okay, so it's like finding the right topic or the right research question.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think finding your research topic and the methodologies are challenging, like to me, because firstly, you have to know what you want to research on. You have to identify a particular problem that you want to maybe find solution to, and how to go about writing your research, the procedures involved, the steps you have to use to, you know, write on this particular topic. I think those are challenging to me.
Yeah, I do. I do agree to some extent that finding the right topic, because the right topic will lead to the right questions, you know. So finding the right problem you want to solve, that's one of the most difficult thing, because you might have an aha moment, like, okay, something very, very interesting. You did something very interesting, and then you go do research about it, somebody that's already done something, you know. So finding something interesting and that is pretty much doable is one of the most difficult, I would say, for me, from my point of view. This might be subjective, but it's probably the most difficult steps within the research writing process. So do we have any other diverging opinions?
Okay, I think let me just come and thank you for your deliberation. So one of the things that I'm confused on often when it comes to research is the issue of uh, first how to develop and getting data analysis. This is one of the ones that I found it so difficult.
So you're talking about data analysis, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay. I mean, that's based on your experience, so that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So, second question, why do you think research skills matter? Like into this in our current dispensation, what do you think research skills matters? Like especially a very not just research skill, but a very robust research skill. What do you think research skill matters? Is it only because you wanna complete your degree and then go back home? You have complete your thesis, graduate, and then go back home?
Okay, can I come in again or
Yeah, you can go ahead. I see the Honorable Alexander.
okay? I reduced my height.
Yeah,
I reduced my height.
yes, Honorable. Yeah, I think it's very important in every spheres of life if you want to make an impact, if you want to make maybe undertake some developmental project that impact people, you have to make a research. You have to, if you want to, in your own field of study, if you want to make an impact, you have to um, acquire skills in research. If you want to develop new ideas or innovation, you need skills in research. That means every spheres of our lives and everything we want to do, we have to need some research skills. That means to see what we can do to improve situation, to improve circumstances, to improve the life of people. We have to go into some research to determine how that problem you want to solve will impact lives.
Okay, right. I do agree. Mr. Kanti.
Yeah, similar thing to what the Honorable just said. I, from the journalism background, obtained my first degree in communications and media studies. And so I think research skills matters a lot because, like what he said, it helps to identify issues in society. It helps to lead developmental processes to the right direction. So research skills, I think, is important, very critical to development as well.
Okay. So research breeds research skills because most of the things we see around us came as a consequence of research being done. Like let's say the advancing artificial intelligence, that was research, you know. So research is pretty much intrinsic to our livelihood, I would say, right now. So on why a robust research skill matters. The first thing is it leads to innovation and discovery, like I mentioned with the artificial intelligence, the advancing artificial intelligence. So your ability to conduct research or you having a very robust research background, it can be the bedrock of something groundbreaking. You know, it might help you to discover something new, maybe in your field of study. And by that, you are able to contribute to existing research in that area or even contribute something new, something entirely new to your field. And then second, global impact. So your ability to conduct research can also lead to providing solutions for some of the issues maybe people were like we are facing. So let's say you are into the health area and then you are fortunate to conduct research on cancer. And unfortunately, you maybe by flukes, maybe by luck, you develop a cure for cancer. So that's something new, you know, that's something new. So and then you are solving a problem, a global problem. You are making global impact. And then thirdly, it leads to career advancement. So just by you being proficient in conducting research or academic writing, it makes you seem much, I would say, much more credible and giving more opportunities, most especially in academia, even in the industry, and even beyond that. You get access to more opportunity because of your ability to conduct research. Because it's not something easy, it's something you being able to do research shows that you have that ability to think independently. You know, you have the ability to think independently to think about something, to come up with a question, and then formulate hypothesis, and then see how you can test the hypothesis to verify all your, you know, your assumptions. Oh. Sorry, I'm having problem with my I want to drag something to the left. 1 sec, please. Yep. Okay. So before we dive into research, first is very much important that we understand the types of research, because doing this, at least it can help us to align our goals along with the kind of research method we are trying, the kind of research method that is appropriate for our research. So for my field of study, most of the research we conduct is mostly quantitative. We observe maybe a phenomena and then collect data and then like make hypotheses and then use that data, conduct data analysis, and then see whether we can make inference based on the data, try to explain the results. So mostly finance and economics research is quantitative. But depending on your field of study, you might have to do something qualitative or something even exploratory. So what I mean by that, so there is research by purpose and then by approach. So by purpose, you have exploratory. So you are just trying to explore, to discover some new patterns or insights. And it's mostly for people in mathematics, people who do a math major. So you're trying to maybe see certain patterns with the number. Let's say maybe you interested in prime numbers. So you're trying to see certain pattern with prime numbers. And then there is the descriptive aspect. So you are trying to describe maybe a relationship between or characteristic between a couple of variables. And then also there is explanatory causal effect. So you need to test the cause and effect relationship between one or two variables or even multiple variables. And then there is research by approach. So there is quantitative, there is qualitative, and then there is the mix, a combination of both quantitative and qualitative research. So for quantitative, it's mostly numbers, like models, econometric models. That's why you collect data, put the data like within the software. You're trying to run some regressions models and stuff. And then there is qualitative, what you do interview, you do case study, try like just for you to get a very maybe in-depth understanding to inform your conclusion, based on your research topic. And there's the mixed method, like I mentioned, the combination of both approaches. So for my field of study, mostly we use quantitative. We conduct quantitative research. So we do with the numbers. So we come up with a topic and then make hypothesis, collect data, conduct data analysis, and then we make inference based on the results we obtain from the data analysis. So what is research methodologies? Because I mentioned research methods, and then there's research methodology. So what is research methodology? By definition, research methodology is the overall strategy that you use to answer a research question. So you got a question, and then you're trying to see what way is the best way for you to answer that question. And this is where most students get lost, including myself, because depending on the topics, depending on the research question, you might get confused. You don't know what methodology might be the best, the optimum to be able to provide a very, let's say, the very, not just robust, but maybe accurate results, to that accurate result that will kind of like capture maybe the underlying phenomenon, underlying assumptions of that model you're trying to employ. So research methodology by definition is the overall strategy you use to answer a research question. And then it helps you to give a reasoning behind choosing certain methods. And it also connects framework to theory, to the data, and then to also the analysis. So there is one thing I would like to mention. Two researchers can use the same data but reach different conclusions because of different methodologies. So let's say you and I conducting research on Liberia, and we're trying to see whether education, maybe whether maybe advancing education can lead to salary increase. Let's say that's the research topic. And then we both collect data, and I use different method, use different method. So not because we're using the same data, that means we will come to the same conclusion. So the conclusion might be based on the kind of methodologies we employ for the research. So that's something to take into consideration. Maybe you might say, oh, this person conducted research. I read a paper, this guy conducted research on this, and his results were kind of conflicting with the other guy who did the same research, used the same data. So the conflicting result might be as a consequence of the research methodology. So you need to keep that in your mind. That's why research methodology is pretty much important. So now, on to methodology and research methods. So research method and research methodologies are two different things. So by understanding the difference, it's very, very vital for you to develop a very sound and very innovative and also contributive research. So for methodology, like I just mentioned, it helps you to explain the why and the how. It explains why you choose that specific procedures, that method, and how your research can help, how your research design can address the questions you're trying to answer. And then for research methods, they talk about the tools. So if you talk about your research methods, the tools, the statistical tools, or the models you're using. So these are the specific techniques or procedures you use to collect and analyze data. Like in finance and economics, we mostly use the OLS regression, ordinary least square regression, the VRR models. Sometimes we even do interviews. Maybe you're trying to get investors' sentiments, how an investor thinks about maybe certain news. So you conduct interviews or even surveys. So if your research method, let's say it's regression analysis, and your methodology, that means your methodology should explain why regression is the most appropriate tool to test, let's say, causality on certain assumptions. So let's say you are using a method, I don't know whichever method you're going to use for your research. So your methodology should explain why you chose that method. And your explanation shouldn't just be based on what you think. It should be grounded within theory, based on existing research or based on theories that have been provided. And one of the common mistakes that most people make is confusing methodology with the software used. So people will say, okay, my methodology, I use Stata, I use SPSS. No, methodology simply means the procedures, the methods you use to get answers to your question. And then the methods is the tools that you use. So there's a very, very, very clear distinction between the two. So I've heard most people say my methodology is using Stata. You can get Stata, but how are you going to provide, how are you going to derive answers to your questions? That's where methodology comes in. You need to have a very robust methodology, and then based on your methodology, and you will know which statistical tools, which statistical methods you can use to get answers to the question you're trying to answer. So like I mentioned, these are just three importance of a methodology, a very strong methodology, because you can get the best idea, you can get the best research question. If you don't know if you don't have the best way, if you don't have a very strong methodology that will help you to explain or to provide answers to the question you're trying to answer, it can lead to a rejection of your paper. Even if you submit your paper for peer review to a journal, it can lead to a rejection of your paper. So having a strong methodology ensures validity, it builds your credibility, and also facilitates your work being published. So what that means, first, if you clearly articulate the method you are using to answer your research questions, this shows to the person reviewing your work, okay, the person knows what he's doing and everything is pretty much accurate, pretty much grounded in theory. And I think I can trust this person, It shows that you know what you are doing. So it also lend authority to your conclusion because based on the methodology, that's how you would derive conclusion. Based on the method you use for your research, that's the kind of result you will get. So if you use a methodology that is not pretty much appropriate for the research question you're trying to answer, it might lead to wrong insight, wrong results, So it's pretty much important. And then lastly, a very strong methodological framework is also prerequisite for acceptance in reputable academic journals. So if you look at some of the top journals and then try to see some of the papers that was published within those journals, you'll notice one thing. The research method is pretty much very, very robust. Even maybe you might say, I can't even understand how the person, conduct their research. I can't understand the method. I can't understand a lot of mathematical equation, all kind of stuff. So these things are very, very important to getting your work being published with, maybe top ranking journal. So like I mentioned, you can get the brilliant findings. Maybe you can do a research and then see that the more you sleep, the more your GPA get high, like your GPA increase. That sounds counterintuitive. I don't know for some people, but let's say the methodology you use to derive that conclusion, if it's not robust enough, it can get your work to be rejected. So to be able to clearly support your conclusion, you need to find a very strong methodology that is appropriate for your research. I know it's not easy. Finding the right methodology is not easy. That's something we also dive into. But based on your research question, it might give you options. It might give you options to the kind of methodology that is pretty much applicable to your research questions. These are just basic principles of academic research, scientific writing. So logical reasoning, you need to be able to think, structure your thoughts, systemic testing, empirically verifying hypotheses. Like I mentioned, mostly in fine arts, we formulate hypotheses and then we test those hypotheses using data. And it's transparency, you should be clear with the reporting of the methods that you use and data. So that's one thing that can get your work accepted, transparency. Because you need to be clear on how you derive that conclusion, how you derive that results. Nobody want to publish paper and they don't know how you come to conclusion. Chicken is white. Why? How you got chicken is white? You can just say chicken is white. And then whether your work is replicable. That's one of the reasons why you mentioned you have to include your methodology within your paper, because people want to be able to replicate your work. So if I see your work and I got interest in what you do, I should be able to just read your work and then know how to at least do something related to that, And within that framework comes reasoning, you know, deductive, inductive, abductive. But that's something philosophical, so we're not going to dive into that. But for mostly what I do for finance and economics research, we predominantly use deductive reasoning, but sometimes we just explore, you know, we just try to identify new patterns or try to discover maybe ways of new insights like from data, you know. So like I mentioned, I've had a thought on how I could really make this session a little bit practical. Maybe we talk a little bit and then try to see some research papers, but I don't know whether we'll have time to do that because right now it feels like I'm just giving a lot of theory. But maybe when we reach to the academic writing section of my presentation, then maybe we can do that. So on to the role of theory in research. And the reason why we have to base our research methodology, like I mentioned, the research methodology, it has to be grounded in theory. Is because based on the theory, we can know how to select the variables, which variable is right for our research. It can also inform the kind of research model that is appropriate for the question we are trying to answer. And lastly, it also helps us to interpret. So based on the theory, we can have like a fresh pair of lens, you know, through which we can be able to understand, we can be able to see, we can be able to understand and explain our results with even more deeper meaning. So there is this famous saying, maybe you have come across it. Data without theory is noise, and theory without data is opinion. And I do agree. You can derive a theory without data. You need data to substantiate the theory. How did you come to that theory? If you say chicken is white, let's say that's a theory. How? Is it chicken in Africa, chicken where? You know, so you need data to be able to substantiate what you are trying to put forward, what you're trying to, let's say, postulate. And data without theory is noise because at the end of the day, the goal is to derive insights from the data. And that insights equal, let's say, theory. So let's say you get data on all the chicken. What are you getting the data for? To derive certain conclusion. And that conclusion might be your theory. So if you can derive a conclusion or a theory from the data is useless. So that's basically just noise. I see somebody raise their hand. Prince City, hello. Do
Yes,
you
sir.
have some?
Sorry, sir. It was a mistake.
Oh, okay. So data without theory is noise, and theory without data is opinion. This is pretty much uh, common to understand based on the explanation I just gave. Now onto the research cycle. Before I explain this section, I would like to mention that the research cycle is an iterative process. What I mean by that, it's not something like it's not a linear process, you know. It's not a linear process. Something you have to like iterate, uh, come back, remodel, just like keep improving, you know, you have to keep improving. But the first step in the research journey is to identify a problem, what we call, okay, the research question. Second, you need to identify a problem because without the problem, without the research question, you can't conduct any research. So you need to identify the problem and then formulate, maybe come up with a research question. And then after After that, you conduct literature review. We'll dive into this later, literature review. And then based on the literature review, you can also develop questions because you're conducting a literature review to identify gaps in research that you think your research can fill or future research can be focused in that direction. And then based on your research question, you can form your hypothesis. So let's say you are, how can I better explain this? Let's say you are conducting research on the impact of financial development on GDP, on economic growth. Let's say GDP, economic growth is measured by GDP. And that's your research question. That's your research topic. So based on that topic, you formulate hypothesis. I think financial development has a positively significant impact on GDP. I mean, if there is an increase in financial development, there will be an increase in economic development, which is measured by GDP. So something like that. So based on the research question, you develop hypothesis. So I've developed that hypothesis. So my goal now is to collect data to verify the hypothesis that I've developed. Is my hypothesis right or is my hypothesis wrong? So how do I verify my hypothesis? I need to choose a methodology. Which method am I going to use? Am I going to use this model? I'm not going to use this one. Why I'm choosing this model, I need to explain. So you have to do that within the research methodology section. So you form your hypothesis, you choose a research methodology, you collect data, you analyze data, and then you interpret the results. And then you write, revise, rewrite, revise, write, rewrite, revise, So this is the basic process like of the research, of conducting a research. Identify problem, literature review, develop question from hypothesis, choose a research method, you collect data, you analyze the data, and then you interpret your findings. In the interpretation of your findings, you also need to maybe mention some implications of your finding. How is it relevant? How is it important to maybe to within the section of policy, let's say policy making, or even academic, like academic research. How is it important to academics? So if your research doesn't contribute anything, that means it's useless. There is no point in conducting that research because the goal is to contribute something, whether by policy or something to academia. So your research should have implications. Yeah, if you have a research question, you should think about does it contribute anything? Does this research question contribute anything to maybe the current discourse in our area, in our field of study, like or maybe on our topic? And how do you figure out that? You have to figure out that from the literature review, because based on the literature review, and then you can identify a gap within literature, and then see how your research can fit in based on current literature, how your research can fit into current literature on that topic. So we will dive a little bit deep into conduct literature review and then writing process later on. But on to identify your research problem. This is one of the most difficult thing, one of the most difficult and one of the most important things within the research writing process, how to identify a research problem. So a well-defined research problem is the bedrock of a successful academic paper. Because if your research is kind of like, let's say, narrowly focused on something, it might lead to you maybe making a very substantial contribution or contributing something meaningful to that field you are in. And some of the ways that you can come up with some of the ways you can come up with good research question or research problem, identify a research problem, like I mentioned, was literature review. That's why you conduct literature review, gaps in literature. So if you read other people's papers, you should read with that kind of let's say with your third eye, I would say, with your third eye. So you are reading to figure out maybe things that person didn't do that you think might affect their results. And then see whether if you do that thing, it can change something, maybe the result can be different than what that person like found. So by reading other people's papers, you can be able to identify gaps in literature, you can be able to identify a problem. And then also by contradictory findings. And usually you see that by reading other people's papers. Let's say you read Mr. A. Mr. A found that A impact B. And then you read Mr. B. Mr. B found that A doesn't impact B. So you can base a research question on what's the reason. I'm trying to figure out, why the discrepancy within the results. Like why Mr. A has this, Mr. B has this, So based on contradictory findings, you can also formulate your own research question. You can also identify a research problem to solve. And also based on real world issue, based on policy, market challenges that require academic insight. You can see things around you. And then just based on that, you come up with a research question. So there is no real, I would say there is no real magic formula, Maybe you just like magic word, you can just say, and then boom, you already come up with a very good research. You just need to be open-minded, like just think deeply and be about the topic you're pretty much interested in, and then try to follow things that are happening, papers, maybe current literature in that area. And maybe based on that, you might stumble upon a gap. Usually that is the case. You always stumble upon something, and then maybe that's why you have your supervisor. Maybe you think this is very, very good. I identify a research gap, and then go to the supervisor. Supervisor say, I think this is not good. Maybe somebody else has already done this. Something like that. So, for example, you might say, I found something and nobody else has studied this. This is pretty much risky. Let's say you conducting a research that nobody has ever done. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but those things are usually for the experts, those very, very well seasoned researchers, those are the guys that come up with things people hasn't done anything related to. So for you and myself, usually we try to find some things at least that we can find paper, like we try to find topic that we can find papers, we can find other people view, other people opinions about. So if you say no one has studied this, it kind of lack context, I would say. It kind of lack context and justification. So no one has studied this. So what are you using to inform maybe your research methodology? If nobody has done this, why do you think this research methodology you're using to maybe to answer this is appropriate? You can justify that. You can justify that because it's not grounded within current empirical research. So one of the good problems is to say, let's say, current status assume X, but because things has changed, Y, existing status assume X, but recent market changes suggest Y. So because of this, there is a need to, maybe to reevaluate. There is a need to re-examine what's happening. So even though current status has done this thing, but because of previous year, maybe 30 years has passed. So things can change in 30 years. The market, let's say, for me, I'm into finance, so the market can change in 30 years. So because of things changing, it creates that need for you to maybe reevaluate some kind of research that somebody has done way back to verify some economic phenomenon to verify some economic theory to show that, okay, maybe if you conduct a research and then realize that the result from the past is the same as the result today, that shows a good thing, right? That means the person that result is consistent. But if you conduct research and it sees that the result from the past is different from today, that's also a very good thing because it shows that economic theory is right. Like the invisible hand of the market will always be in control. It's right. Because things changes. So you don't expect things to be constant. Even the data will tell you. The data won't lie to you. Except if it's a very like kind of fabricated data, but the data won't lie to you. The real world data won't lie to you. So how do you transform a topic into a research question? I will show a couple examples and then maybe we will dive a little bit deeper into that. So let's say you have a topic, pretty much broad, pretty much broad. You have to narrow down that topic into a research question. You have to winnow down your choices. And then based on that research question, you formulate hypothesis. So for example, let's say your topic is financial volatility, like how volatile the financial market is, So that's very broad, Let's say your topic is the stock market. Your topic is the stock market. What in the stock market you're trying to study? That's very, very broad. So you have to figure out a way to narrow down your topic into a question. So in this example, you can see here, so the topic is financial volatility. And then the research question is, how does volatility affect the core movement of assets? How does volatility affect the core movement of assets? So how does the movement in the market affect how the prices of assets in that market? So maybe the prices of gold, whether in times of risks, whether gold price will go up along with other assets or gold price will come down along with other assets, So how does volatility affect asset prices, core movement? So you have to figure out a way to narrow down your research topic into a research question. That's something that comes with thinking. Sometimes it get confusing, but that's the beauty of conducting research. You need to be able to learn how to do that. So based on the research question, you develop hypothesis. So based on this one, the hypothesis is that increased volatility strengthens safe haven relationship. Let me try to explain this for those who are not into finance. So what I mean by this is the more the market is volatile, the more stronger the relationship between safe haven financial assets like gold, like when the market is pretty much volatile, gold price will go up. And all those assets that are in the same category as gold, their value will also go up. So the relationship between those assets, those safe haven assets strengthens, So you need to narrow down your focus, get a topic, narrow down your focus into a question, and then based on the question, you formulate hypothesis and then see whether it's possible to test those hypotheses, whether it's possible to find data to test those hypotheses. An example of a bad topic, you said stock market performance. How? It's pretty much broad. So a good research question will be, how does global market volatility affect the co-movement between green bonds and traditional safe haven assets? Like I just mentioned here. Yeah, sorry. Like I just mentioned here. So some of the characteristics of a very good research question, it has to be pretty much clear. It has to be specific. It has to be something that is very, very researchable, something that you can do, something that you can test. Because you can come out with something and it's not possible for you to test that. It's not possible for you to get data on that. That's another problem. Then you have to go back and then maybe try to come up with another research question. So your question has to be something that is researchable, something you can test, and then something that's also relevant, something that can contribute to current literature on that in that area, or even policy wise, something that can contribute policy wise. On to just additional stuff about identifying research problem or coming up with a research question. So I saw a quote by Leonardo da Vinci, and he said, "Simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication." Because most people try to come up with a very complicated research question, very, very complicated research question. Maybe because they don't understand, or sometimes because they're just trying to show they're pretty much sophisticated. So they will use all the ambiguous terms within the title, or this variable, this model. They try to condense those models they use within your title, that when you read a title, you're already scared. You're already scared to even read a research paper. I'm just saying something, you know. So try to avoid using ambiguous uh, concepts within your research question, using concepts that are not well defined within your research questions. So let's take an example. Let's look at an example, okay? Consider this research question. Are stock markets returns higher in January? So this is a research question, right? And then there is another research question. Do international political crises have an impact on financial market? So which one do you think is the better one? I wanna hear your view. Which one of these research questions you think is the better one? Hello? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
So if you want to talk, just raise your hands and we'll just recognize you and you can contribute. We are following, sir.
Yeah, so which one of those two research questions you think is the better one? Based on what I just explained, it has to be clear, it has to be specific, it has to be something testable, and it has to be relevant.
I see a hand of Tatus. Yeah, Tatus, you can unmute yourself and respond to the speaker's question.
Yeah,
Tatus, go ahead.
for me, like you are asking, which one is preferable or which one is easy to deal with, right?
In terms of everything I just explained, concerning everything I just explained, which one you think is very, very clear? It's very clear, precise, and
I think do
it's something
international
very doable.
political crisis have, yes, this one is easy to deal with. Do international political crisis have an impact on financial market? I think that what I try to understand from the asking, this one is most easiest to deal with when it
Okay,
comes to
why you think
research.
so? Why you think so?
Because if you look at the grammar or the questions, the question will give you thinking faculties. It will give you a mind to think, and what you choose the topic, because this topic is like I trying to put it in the way. It's like you try to you don't, because you don't want to have problem in the field what you are doing your research, and you want to get all of people that have already done this work, that you'll be able to have link with them, or you'll be able to have quick access to that people.
Okay, I got you. So you think it's much more easier to find research paper with regards to the second research topic than the first one?
Yes.
Okay. So any other opinion?
Honorable Joe, you can talk.
Okay, I think I want to follow Tatus to say that The second research question is more focused and to some extent maybe more specific and be able to get a lot of papers or research papers than this one. In my mind, in this one, consider this research question: are stock market returns higher in January? In my mind, if you just say January, I think January is a kind of broad because there are so many years with January. So the specific January we are talking about, if you say January, which year January?
So let's
So
say
if
we're
you go
talking
look
about
at
the year. Let's say we're talking about the year we are in. Maybe let's say that was 1977. They were trying to see whether stock market returns are higher in January in 1977.
Okay, so on that note, I also think that the second is also better off in terms of the structure, that you're able to find more papers. Because if you look at the structure, do international political crisis have an impact on financial market? This is a question I think you will be dealing with international political crisis. I think there are two variables in the financial market system. You'll be looking at these two variables.
Okay.
If you look at this one, we say our stock market returns higher in January, maybe in a specific year. So I think this is more broader as compared to this one.
Okay, we'll find out that later.
Don't make me
But
a financial person, so I
no,
said
I
try
mean,
to.
yeah, sure. I do understand your perspective though, but we will dive into the two and then we will see which one is much more clear. I'm not both topics are not both questions are not bad, but one is much more clear than the other. Hello. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
can I?
Yeah, coming. Coming.
Yeah. Looking at the both questions here, and then you just specify the year 1977. And actually, I'm not a finance person, but looking at the year that you just called 1977, if you are doing a research on this topic, the year is far, far as compared to recent paperwork, because most instructor or professor will say your research work should be like maybe updated up to maybe 5 years, 6 years, but then it's going all the way to 1977.
Yeah,
So looking at
I'm saying let's suppose we are in the year 1977. Okay, let's say we in 2025. Okay, and I'm trying to see. Let disregard 1997 I mentioned. But I'm saying let's suppose that we are in the year 2025, and we are trying to see whether stock market returns are higher in January. So maybe you guys are not you understand the term stock market returns, right? Frederick.
Hello.
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 Yeah. Can I hold on a little bit? I think somebody is talking.
My hand is up.
Yeah, just wait to be recognized. We've seen your hand. Yeah, just wait to be recognized.
So go ahead, Lama. I think Lima, right?
Lima was the one talking.
Yeah, so looking at the two topic here, I will actually go for the one that say, do international political crisis have an impact on financial market? That way you can be able to do a research on this topic and download people that will support your claims. But this won't have
Go ahead, sorry.
But this won't have, looking at a year, even a year, the month, you have to answer a lot of questions within there as well. So I'll stop there and give the time to another people to talk to.
Okay, granted. Any other opinion?
Yeah, before we take the chairman of the planning committee, let's take Morris Wiggy G.
Morris, can you just be
Wiggy,
pretty much
just
concise
unmute
with
yourself and
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the this statement that is very obvious. Simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I think that there is a time frame or a specific era which is in January. So for instance, if we are in 2026 and this is January and we'll soon go to February and we want to make a research on our stock market returns higher in January. So I think the research will be specifically limited to just January instead of the entire broad thing. So, in my opinion, I think this first one is easier.
Okay.
Yeah, because a specific time or month is attached to it.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Next is Small Givler. Or Givler.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I would like to coincide with my brother. No, not really. Coincide with the previous speakers, right? The
Morris,
second,
right?
huh?
So just tell us
Just tell us
what do you
your
think? So what do you think?
Okay, so I agree with the second speakers, even though like we all have said, we are not financial experts and we don't have broader idea when it comes to this topic on a discussion. But the first one sounds sweet, all right? It sounds logical, but scientifically, I think the second you can find, it's more researchable. Now, we consider the fact that it is in a specific period, like you said, in a specific year. Okay, so we can just go for it, considering January. So we can just consider all of the January um uh, um records, and we can look at it and see how best we can broaden our scope. But from all indication, I think I consider the second question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So let's.
Okay, Chief. Before you talk, let me just make my little input. Right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. From the previous statement and maybe from the little research idea and the issue of equity. Yeah, when you look at the first one, even though it appears not to be more specific, but I think it's more narrow than the second one because the time frame has been mentioned, and it is also comparing heights, whether it is higher or lower. You already know what you are looking for. Okay, it's more specified compared to the second one. I just talked about international crisis. So what crisis are we talking about? Is it international? Is it war or maybe health crisis? It's not specific. Yeah, it gives you. It's just open up. You don't know what to look for. Okay. Another thing there that I'm thinking of again. I'm also looking at the specificity of the impact, whether it's negative or maybe positive, whether it's a short term or long term, it's not specified. Yeah,
Okay.
and when we look there again, maybe we could see that it's not narrowed down to maybe financial market, whether it's a stock or bond or currencies or any other thing. So most times in research, we just want to be more direct. Sorry, Chief, I just want to just add up that.
I mean, that's
Honorable Speaker.
Yeah.
Please, let me add a little bit bone on it, flesh on the bone, right? The
Okay.
second question is a defined event, right?
Okay.
And then it is measurable and it is focused compared to the first one.
Why do you think it's measurable? That's what I want to know. Why?
Oh,
how?
Okay.
Like a very specific question. How do you measure international political crisis? Just answer that question.
How do I do that?
How do you measure international political crisis. Let's say you want to conduct you want to test you want to collect data, right? And then test the data, right? To see
Yeah.
whether international political crisis have impact on financial market, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you get the data for the financial market. You got no problem getting data for financial market. So how do
Yeah.
you measure? How do you get data for international political crisis? How do you measure international political crisis?
Well, I may not give the answers as you wanted, but what I can say is that um, it focus on a specific cause.
There are a lot of crises. It could be global warming. Let's
Yeah.
say, yeah, it could be global. It could be earthquake. It could be anything. So which
Well,
crisis are we talking about?
I'll stop there for now. I can continue.
Okay. Okay, let's dive
But
in and we'll see which one is better. Which one is more clear? Not like better, but which one is more clear and, and concise. So for the first case, right? We saw that stock market returns is very well defined, for the first case. And we can use major stock market indices to measure the stock market return. So you can use because they are telling you the stock market returns, they're not telling you individual stock. Anyway, you guys are not into finance, so I mean, but no need to dive into the intricacies of maybe the stock market. But you can see the stock market returns pretty much well defined. And then January also well defined. And then the term higher. So in research, often in a statistical sense or even in an economic sense, so we know exactly what we're looking for, whether it's higher or it's lower. So if it's not higher, we already know. But let's look at the second case. So generally, this topic is pretty much okay. But let's look at the second case. So for the second case, the concept impact is not clear. It could mean contemporaneous what? Impact. Or something pretty much like this pretty much economical, but it could be contemporaneous impact. What kind of impact? Positive, like the other guy mentioned. I think it was Frederick. And Frederick mentioned whether it's positive, whether it's negative impact, we don't know. And then the second thing, the concept international political crisis is even worse. So one person terrorist is another person what? Freedom fighter. Am I lying? So so how do you measure political crisis? It's not clearly defined. So let's say for example you ask 100 people to define international political crisis for you. You'll get probably 100 different answers. I'm be honest, some people will say maybe uh war, you know. Maybe people even say maybe the war coming to an end, like the second coming of Christ. So it's pretty much different. It's pretty much difficult to define international political crisis. So we have to avoid that kind of situation. You need to be pretty much clear, very very clear and very concise. Yeah. So when you are developing a research question, you should think about whether it's doable. Can you measure that? Can you measure this? Can you find data on this? That's something you should keep in mind because if you come up with a question and then you can get data to test maybe your hypothesis. Let's say our hypothesis based on the question we get is that international political crisis positively impact the financial market, right? Or let's say negatively impact the financial market. So when we get crisis, the financial market will what? Crash. So that's the hypothesis, like based on like intuition. That's what we think. When we have crisis, let's say there is war, the financial market will crash, right? Like the tariff war. The financial market was not reacting good, right? Okay, so that would be the hypothesis. But how do we test that hypothesis? If we can get data on the crisis, how do we measure which kind of crisis are we talking about? So it becomes difficult to measure the crisis, even though the topic on the surface seems like something very sweet, something that makes sense, but it's a little bit difficult. So maybe you could narrow it down, you know, to maybe to certain country, the international political crisis, or does like war, have impact on the financial market in the US, or in China, you have to narrow it down to something more specific. So it's even more difficult. You might say it's easier to find papers on international political crisis. I don't know how you guys derive that conclusion, but it's even more difficult for you to find a database of international political crisis, that have already been used in top journals. It's very, very difficult. Like to find just that term, international political crisis. Maybe you will see war, you will see maybe earthquake, the impact of earthquake, but like you can find one variable that can tell you everything about the stock market, but you can find one variable that can tell you everything about international political crisis. Yeah, so it's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit complicated. The second research question is a little bit complicated. It's not too clear, but on the surface it sounds pretty much sweet, and very doable. But it's not very clear. Oh, sorry. How do I drag the thing down? Okay. So let's look at more examples. Are men more optimistic than women? Let's look at the example. Are men more optimistic than women? What do you think? Do you think men are more optimistic than women? Do you think that's a doable research question? How do you measure optimism? That's another thing. So definitely just from this question, we can know like there's not something that's kind of doable. It's relevant, but it's not doable. Yeah, how do you measure optimism? And where exactly you want to see whether man is more optimistic than women? So that's things to consider. So there's one thing to remember. There's one thing to remember. The more ambiguity, the more tests you have to do. So the more unclear your question is, the more you have to prove. The more statistical analysis you have to do to prove that that question is worth doing. But if it's clear, it kind of narrow, you know exactly what you need to do, like something pretty much specific you need to do. So for a good research question, you are looking for concepts that are clear cut and require as few assumptions as possible. You don't want to be thinking, oh, how will I measure this? Should I use war to proxy for international political crisis? So if you use war, what about other variables? Should I include this one? So it has to be clear cut, and you need to try your best to get rid of as many assumptions as possible. You don't want to assume, because if you assume and then you have to conduct more, let's say, robustness tests to see to kind of test to ensure the validity of your research model or your research methodology. So less is more. Try to be very concise with your research question or case. Keep it simple. Yeah, you need to keep it simple. So for the research question I mentioned, for the two questions I mentioned, our stock market highs in January. This is a international study. And then a comparison of 5 theories of asset pricing applied to the, let's say this is another one. A comparison of 5 theories of asset pricing applied to the Danish stock market. Which one do you think? Based on the two, which one do you think is much more clear? I think I'm kind of like boring you guys with a lot of financial stuff because it's a little bit like those terminologies are pretty much difficult to understand because it's not your field. So I would just skip. I'll just skip. But like I mentioned, one of the things you need to consider is variables, proxies. So if you are developing a research question, you need to think about, can I get variable? How can I measure this thing? So if I say the impact of financial, let's say the impact of financial development on economic growth. So how do I measure financial development? How do I measure economic growth? That's the thing that will be in my mind. So how do I measure financial development? How do I measure economic growth? So based on existing research, based on existing literature, if you read other people's papers, you will see, okay, most people use GDP. GDP, to measure to proxy for economic development. And most people use domestic credit, to measure financial development. So there are things you need to consider. And then you will have to do your research on, how do I measure this? Like, can I find research paper that has used, like maybe the same variables? How do the person measure it? So that one you can figure out yourself. You have to figure out from other people papers. You have to see what other people use to measure certain things. And then you yourself too, you'll learn from that and then see, okay, in the future too, anytime I want to measure GDP, I will use I want to measure economic growth, I will use GDP. And then you might even see some interesting things. Maybe somebody use GDP in 2015 dollars, the other person use the other kind of GDP, and then you see, then you compare the result and see what was the result and why the other person used this. Because the man will explain to you why. You might explain your methodology, why you use this other kind of GDP and why you use GDP in 2015 dollars. So these are things you have to figure out. You have to devote the time to learn by yourself. But you just need to have that forward thinking mindset. Okay, my question, can I measure those variables? Can I find a corresponding proxy that is appropriate for those variables I'm trying to use within my research? Because sometimes you can only use proxies for concepts and then there are no data available. So let's look at another example. Does vacation behavior of investors affect stock market returns? So the people that are investing in the stock market, does the thing they do on their vacation affect what happened to the market? So you can measure stock market returns, but how do you measure their vacation behavior? That's a problem. Yeah, so the stock market returns is well defined. Vacation behavior is well defined, but it's hard to measure. Yeah, what do you call vacation behavior? You know, what is it that person is doing on vacation that you really want to know, that you really think might affect the stock market? Okay, so if you can only find one proxy and it has low correlation with the kind of the concept you are trying to define, you also need to reconsider your research question. So the thing is, it's not just finding a variable or a proxy that you can use to measure, the concept you're trying to define. But it's finding something that is related to the entire research, that is correlated to the entire research. You need to find a measurable way to account for the variable you are trying to include in your research. So how to find a good research question? The simple thing is you just need to question everything. Don't take everything to be worse, like word from Zeus. So you need to question everything. If you think this is too far, you need to start questioning the main principles behind everything in your field. If you are into, let's say, environmental science, and then you read something interesting, you can read other people's papers and even question their hypothesis, or you question their findings, and then see whether you can conduct research maybe to maybe to, let's say, you can conduct research that can provide a whole different findings than what that person found before. So, for example, if other people might say everybody in the field agree to this. So because everybody agreed, maybe people agreed 30 years ago, everybody will not agree now. Things has changed, you know. So research is like, true research like fashion. Sometimes certain thing will be trending, and then certain times it's not trending no more. Maybe during that time, a lot of people agree with that. Now people, things has changed. So you can do research on things people even agree on a couple of years ago, but it should contribute in certain way. Like maybe it should contribute something new to the current literature on that topic. Maybe you find conflicting result and try to explain why you got conflicting result. What the people did way back that you think they could have done, you know. So for example, it is generally accepted that smoking is bad for health, right? This may be true, but you can ask, will it be bad for all people all the time? Or could there be examples where the health benefits outweigh the health costs to an individual, if only for some people? Do you think so? Some people think the benefit of smoking is outweigh the health costs. So when you read something, maybe you need to question, okay, smoking is bad, but is there a situation where smoking can be good for some people? And then you also need to question, how do we measure health as a society? Do we use life expectancy? Maybe how long a person live? And is that a good proxy for happiness? What behavior do people show after they quit? And is that really healthier than smoking? So you just need to question everything. Yeah, in the process of trying to find a good research question. You just need to question everything. You just need to have that forward thinking mindset and try to question everything. So another way is through literature, reading other people's papers. Like I mentioned, you need to read other people's papers, and then you can be able to identify a gap in literature that you can fill. So what may work well is to go back to your textbook and see which topics intrigue you. A similar approach would be to have a look at top journals in your field and see what the issues are of interest. Like for me in finance, right now the current hot button issue is sustainable finance, sustainable investment, green finance, So almost all the research is in that direction. Green finance, green bonds, ESG. That's the research area. So you can just, if you want to figure out maybe some gap in literature, try to find what people are currently doing right now in our area. And then based on that, you can even identify a gap, that you think you can fill by doing your research. But the problem is, um, most of the time, it will be hard for you to find a low-hanging fruit, because almost every day people doing research. So as you're thinking, somebody he might come up with something very, very interesting. You go find out that somebody has already done it. Yeah. Right now, let's say you think about financial development, you think about economic growth. There are a lot of research on that. A lot of research. Even you're talking about the effect of your sleep on your GPA. A lot of research already on that. So it will be hard for you to find something so easily that nobody has done, or that there is like no, like not many paper, or that is pretty much specific to the question you kind of like the question you kind of came up with. So another way to find a good research question is your daily life, newspaper, politics, what happening in the real world. Like for example, the 2008 financial crisis. It led a lot of people to conduct research because it was the cause of the financial crisis was due to the subprime mortgage, you know, lending crisis, mortgage crisis. So A lot of people start doing research on mortgage and the financial market, housing. So based on the real world situation, you can narrow your research interest. You can identify a research question. Maybe trying to do something that will help Liberia. What do you think Liberia is suffering from? What do you think your research can contribute? And but the thing is, the daily life thing, it might attract a lot of people. So it will be like a horse race, Who the first to conduct research, who the first to publish paper, you know. So what other people will do, maybe they'll come up with idea and then write a working paper and then put it on the internet. And so that you can be like, okay, I the first to come up with the idea, I already working on it. But a good start is your daily life. You need to observe what's happening around you. And then from that you can develop the intuition or maybe how to come up with certain thing, like so certain research topic, maybe something specific to your field of studies. So most of the time when you think of a research question, you will not know the answer. You will not know the answer ex ante. What that means is before you do analysis, before you collect data, you can't know the answer. You might get hypothesis. Your thoughts suggest hypothesis. It's not the answer. So you might think they will positively affect this, negatively affect this, but that's not the answer. So you can't know the answer until after you have conducted analysis. And most of the time in academia, we tend to focus more on research that produce statistically significant results. And that's true. That's most of the time, that's always the case. Yeah, that's always the case. But the thing is, if your result is not significant, for another work you do, I would say, because how is your research work relevant to what's happening? How does it contribute? So the best research questions are those that have pretty much interesting results, regardless of maybe the implications. Some results can be pretty interesting, but maybe there's no current implication. Maybe after a certain time, and then people will see the implications of that person work, of that person research. There's some work that got very, very famous. Maybe even after that person passed away, like posthumous. So, for example, let's say suppose a study was conducted 25 years ago, and it finds that some economic variables predict stock returns. And then you did that same study and found the following results. You found out what the person found 25 years ago is still the same today. So this is interesting because it shows that result hasn't been arbitraged away. But let's say you found that the result 25 years ago is insignificant today. This is also okay. People might say, oh, but then how do I contribute? Okay, I did a study that has been conducted 25 years ago. And then I saw that the results still valid to today. I mean, that's something interesting. You are, even though you're not contributing something new, but you are contributing something interesting, showing that some of those economic theory, maybe some assumptions about the market hasn't gone away. That's the reason why that result is still valid up to today. But let's say you conduct your own study and using that same data, that same research question, and then you saw the result today is insignificant. That's something new. That's something entirely new. 25 years ago, it was significant. Today is insignificant. So it confirms economic theory, because economic theory says that things are changing. So you found something new. You have to explain what is different. What is different from today that makes your result different compared to 25 years ago. So there are numerous ways you can contribute to current research. You can even do research I back on another 50 years ago, and then see whether the results still valid today. Whether there's maybe certain theory that was used within that work that our entire work was based upon, whether that theory is still valid today. And then based on that, you can see whether the result is relevant or it's not relevant. But the thing is, you see that it's significant because the thing is, you put in a lot of work. You put in a lot of work to conduct the research. So, and your main goal is to contribute something new. Yeah, even though you also be okay with finding something interesting, but finding something interesting, getting something interesting like to be published, that's another thing. But find like contribute something new. The likelihood of getting something new to be published is pretty high because most of those journals are looking for something new, new contribution. You're not you just saying, okay, Apple was rare 25 years ago, today Apple is still rare. I mean, if you are just trying to test some economic theory, fine. But if you are trying to get work published, you need to go for a new contribution. So what you need to do, you need to see if you have any basic knowledge about the topic you are trying to study. If you find it interesting, don't do something that you not find interesting just for the sake of doing it. Yeah. Try to find something that you think you got interesting. Yeah. And then see if you can get sufficient resources on it. If you can find papers on that topic, maybe trying to study some of the topics I mentioned. If you can find papers on that, if you can find maybe even books, even theory, even other people ideas, just try to see what you can find sufficient resources because you can't do it from scratch. You have to base on other what the work those works other people have done. You need to base on that and see how you can contribute to their work. And then see if you are also able to use the necessary tools to conduct that research, to handle with the problem. And if you have the time to read those papers, because reading is one of the most important. Reading other people's papers can give you insight, can help you identify a research question. And then after you identify a research question, then based on other people's research, you can see what was the tool they used, what methodology they used to answer that research question. So whether you're able to use the same tool, maybe the person say, oh, okay, I use Tata, I use R, I use Python. Can you use Python? Do you have the time to learn Python? Maybe within the time frame you set to finish your research. Do you have the time to learn that? Maybe that statistical software or that research methodology. So those are things to really consider. So how to find an appropriate topic? This is a very complicated question. How do you find an appropriate topic? Your topic has to be problem oriented. And one thing you need to know is one paper, one problem. Don't try to solve multiple problems in one, like let's say one thesis or one paper, Don't try to solve multiple problems. Yeah, try to keep it to one thing. Some people, I would see some things. Some people say, okay, then maybe the impact of financial development, environmental policy, of international political crisis on economic growth. That's like three different things on one thing. So you're trying to answer three different questions in just one paper. We separate that into three different papers. I mean, if research hasn't already been conducted on. Those topics. So try to keep it pretty much specific. One problem. Don't try to solve multiple problems in one paper. Very specific. So your problem should be very specific, not a general one like I just mentioned. Yeah, so the effect of A on B. Là, il fait A, B, C on Z. That's complicated. And then you got confused because you don't know how to measure all those things. Which variable to include, which variable is relevant. So now you might say, I have my research question. What next? What data to use? What sample period not to use? So from my experience, do not use 10 years of data or 5 years of data or any round number just because it is a round number. And what I mean by that, you understand what I mean by that. And try to avoid arbitrary choices. If you do not have to make choice, then don't make it. If you have data available for 11 years, use 11 years. If you have data available for 326 years, use 326 years. If you have data for 500 years, use 500 years data. Except maybe the research you're doing for some kind of organization and then tell you don't want to know, maybe based on your research question, you wouldn't want to see what happened in the last 5 years, or in the past year, or the organization that's sponsoring your research wouldn't want to know 10 years ago, then that's okay. But if you don't have any of those restrictions, I mean, if the data is available for 11 years, use 11 years. For 50 years, use 50 years. For 326 years, you can use that. So, but the world will have changed in 326. The people will say, okay, but why would I use data available for 326 years? Just because it's available. We understand the world has changed in 326 years. But the relevant question is whether it has changed with respect to the research question you are addressing. That's question to consider. So the world can change, but the question you're trying to answer, maybe nothing has changed over these time periods. Nothing can change. Maybe let's look at Labrador, for example. Okay, let's say hypothetically, not development wise, Labrador has not changed 100 years ago, but the world has changed, right? So if you conduct research on Labrador economic growth, will you not want to use 100 years ago data when it's available? So you can decide whether something has changed or not, just based on your own intuition. The data has to tell you. If the data tell you Labrador has changed, fine. If the data tell you Labrador hasn't, fine. But you need to use data based on data availability, except it's explicitly mentioned. Maybe within the work you are doing, it's telling you to only use 50 years ago, 10 years ago. And onto research design. So the choice of your research design can kind of determine the type of question you can answer and the results you can derive from the data, because each research design is pretty much different than the other. So there is the cross sectional, there is time series, and there is panel data. So we're not going to dive deep into this because I feel like these are all things you can learn. You can learn. There should be a whole different seminar just on these things. Like on data analysis, econometrics. Data analysis and stuff. So there is cross sectional, there is time series, there is panel data. So each of these research design answers different question, okay, and reveal distinct aspects of research problem. So for example, if you are into finance, for finance mostly we use time series. We're not going to define time series right now, but just from I included the definition so you can just read. So for time series, we try to see the evolution of variables over time. Let's say uh, I have Liberia GDP, and then I have China's GDP, and I'm trying to see how China GDP and Liberia GDP co-move every year. the core movement of China's GDP and Liberia GDP every year. That's like time series. I'm trying to understand the dynamics of those two variables over time. What I want, like, in 2025, let's say 2025, when Liberia GDP go up, China GDP went up, something like that. And then if you are using panel data within your research, you are trying to capture time dynamics and also heterogeneity across entities. These are complicated econometrics terms, so we're not going to dive into that. We're just trying to understand the basics of conducting research. This one is for data analysis, and we're not doing data analysis now.